This week's parasha is Shelek, which means sent forth. And the Torah reading for this week is Numbers chapter 13, verse 1 to Numbers chapter 15, verse 41. Let's get a roundup of this parasha before we proceed into a deeper understanding. Moses sent 12 spies, one from each tribe, to the land of Canaan, the former name of the land of Israel, to see what the land and its people are like. The spies toured the whole land, and when they come back after 40 days, they tell the people that it is indeed a land flowing with milk and honey. But they add, the people in it are very strong, and the cities have huge walls like fortresses. And we even saw giants. And they tell the Jews that the land would be much too difficult to conquer, even though two of the spies, Joshua and Caleb, disagree with the rest, saying that the land is very good and they can surely conquer it. The Jews believe those with the bad report, and they cry out to Moses that they don't want to go. God is furiously angry and wants to kill the Jews. But Moses begs him not to, reminding him that he is the God of mercy. So God agrees to spare the Jews, but says that because they complained except for Joshua and Caleb, none of these people will go into the land. They will all die in the desert. Then he tells Moses to turn around from the direction they were going and head towards the desert. When Moses tells the people that they would have to stay in the desert for 40 years instead of going into the land of Israel, they realize what a horrible mistake they made and are very sad. Some of the people say, okay, we realize that we have sinned and we are ready to go into the land, and they go up to the mountain getting ready to enter the land, but Moses tells them that it is too late and that they should not go because God is not with them and they will not succeed. They go on anyway and suffer a terrible defeat by the Canaanites and the Amalekites. We learn about the mitzvah of Chala. When we bake bread, a portion of it must go to God. Today, when we don't have a sanctuary, we make sure to burn a piece of the dough before baking a bread. A man gathers wood on Shabbat, desecrating it, and he is put to death. We learn about the mitzvah of Zit, fringes worn on the corners, on the four corners of the four-cornered garment. When we see the fringes, we remember who we are and the mitzvah that God commanded us. As we go deeper into this parasha, to understand it, we come up with a question of whether the 12 people, men which were sent into the land of Canaan, were spies or tourists. Most of us are familiar with the main events of the Parashat Shelek. The spy bring an evil report concerning the promised land, And as a result, a generation that experienced redemption from Egypt cannot enter it. But now many of you know that when the scriptures are analyzed thematically, a deeper understanding of the text is possible. Furthermore, the scripture blossom with ever unfolding levels of understanding. Such is the case in this week's lesson. We will attempt to apply thematic analysis to the first parsha of this week's Sidra. Normally, we try to find out the overall theme of the parsha. This week, however, let's analyze the parsha to understand the purpose of the 12 spies. Why they were sent? Was theirs a military mission which is commonly understood, or is there more to the story? When we read Numbers chapter 13, verse 1 to chapter 14, verse 10, according to the conventional wisdom, the 12 men were sent as military spies on a peace-type reconnaissance mission. Let's compare this story with another story thematically related to it. Joshua sent 2 spies into Jericho before attacking it. The story is recounted for us in Joshua 2, 1 to 24. We know for a fact that the 2 men sent in Joshua 2 were military spies. Joshua was about to take the city of Jericho and sent 2 spies to assess the situation for military purposes. As you know, the basis of thematic analysis is to compare and contrast scriptures that they are related by similar themes to uncover more understanding. So let us go and get going. Who was sent? Notice in our parsha that the text never calls the men spies. It mentions many times that they spied out the land. However, they are never spies. They were never called spies. In contrast, Joshua 2:1 specifically refers to the 2 men as spies. The Art Scroll Chumash translates this verse as Joshua son of Nun dispatched from Sittim 2 men spies, secretly saying, this translation is more correct. If you know just a little Hebrew, you can look at the Hebrew wording in the Chumash and see that the text literally states 2 men spies. The Hebrew word for spies is miraglim. In our Sidra, the Torah goes through great lengths to identify the men. It gives their names and tribal affiliations and emphasizes that they represent the nation. In Joshua 2, we are told nothing concerning the identity of the 2 men. It is shrouded in secrecy. Let me ask you a question. Is it normal for a general populace of a country to know the identity and the mission of its military spies? Of course not. For example, in the US, the spies and their mission are totally shrouded in secrecy. Could this be a clue that the 12 were not sent as military spies? Note how many spies were sent in Numbers 13 and Joshua 2. Among both scenarios, sending the smaller number were more consistent with military spies to prevent detection. In the account of Numbers 13, chapter 13 and 14, Moses and all the congregation of Israel knew that the spies were being sent. In the account in Joshua 2, only Joshua knew that the spies had been sent. No one else was aware, especially not the nation. Once again, we see that the mission of the spies commissioned by Joshua is more consistent with military mission, whereas the mission of Moses' spies was not military in nature. These differences have made us rethink the nature of the mission of the spies in the book of Numbers. Only Joshua's spies act clandestinely or secretly once they are in their mission field. Nowhere in the account in Numbers chapter 13 and 14 do we read of the 12 spies trying to hide from the inhabitants of the land. However, this is in stark contrast to the behavior of the spies in Joshua's mission. Joshua 2:1 specifically states that Joshua sent them secretly. Note how much hiding Joshua's spy needed to do in order to avoid detection. Again, we see that the actions of Joshua's spies are more consistent with a military mission, whereas the action of Moses' spies are not. In fact, considering that they bought a cluster of grapes so large that it needed to be carried on a pole between two men, I would say they were probably out in the open. In the two stories, Moses' spies reported their findings to the entire nation, and Joshua's spies secretly reported to him alone. Once again, we see a dramatic difference in behavior of the spies. Joshua's spies report only to him, that this is more consistent with a military mission. Moses' spies report their findings to the entire nation. Joshua gives a simple military directive: go reconnoiter Jericho. Moses asked them to report on the people and the land. While it is true that Moses' directive contains elements of military association, Numbers 13:17 to 30, pertaining to the strength of the people and their cities, note how he kept asking particular questions about the land which has nothing to do with military intelligence. He even asked them to bring some of the fruit back, what that got to do with a military spy mission. Now, putting it all together, we come to the conclusion that just by comparing and contrasting these two stories, they are clearly thematically linked, and we have seen the evidence We have seen that the evidence suggests that Moses did not send the spies out for military reconnaissance. So why did he send them? Throughout the narrative of Numbers 13, the Torah uses the Hebrew root word tur to describe the mission of the spies. In fact, it is mentioned 12 times. This word means to tour, to scout, to stroll, or to survey. It is used in 3 other places besides our story in Numbers chapter 15 verse 39, Deuteronomy chapter 1 verses 29 to 33, and Numbers 10:33. So they departed from the mountain of the Lord on a journey of 3 days, and the ark of the covenant of the Lord went before them for the 3 days journey to search out a resting place for them. Numbers 10:33. And he shall have a tassel that you may look upon it and remember all the commandments of the Lord and do them, and that you may not follow the harlotry to which your own heart and your own eyes are inclined. Numbers chapter 15 verse 39. Deuteronomy 1:29 to 33 says, Then I said to you, do not be terrified of or afraid of them. The Lord your God who goes before you, he will fight for you. And according to all that he did for you in Egypt before your eyes, and in the wilderness, when you saw how the Lord your God carried you as a man carries his son in all the way, and that you were until you came to this place. Yet for all that, you did not believe the Lord your God, who went in the way before you to search you. To search out a place for you to pitch your tents, to show you the way you should go in the fire by night and in the clouds by day. And you can see the root tur has nothing to do with spying. It has nothing to do with a clandestine operation used to gather military intelligence. Its connotation is one of seeking out, searching, and looking for in order to choose. The real meaning of Israel's objective was to tour the land, not to spy it out. I know you are thinking, but my Bible and the Chumash uses the word spy. Well, I have stated before, the Hebrew root word typically associated with spying, as in Joshua chapter 2, never occurs in any of the passages in Numbers. Therefore, the spies could not have been engaged in a purely military mission. So why are they always referred to as spies? There are 2 reasons. First, As we have noted earlier, part of their mission did not have a military aspect to see if the inhabitants and the cities were strong or not. People tend to focus on this aspect, but Moses' main question concerned the land. Why? Because this is simply a fact finding mission, not a spy mission. It was designed to encourage Israel to choose the land. In other words, just as the route tour has been consistently used in the sense of searching out in order to choose, so likewise the spies were sent to search the land, bring back evidence of its goodness, so that Israel would choose it and accept it as a gift it was intended to be. Instead, they rejected it. The second reason has to do with Moses recounting the story beginning in Deuteronomy 1:22. And they departed and went up into the mountains and came to the valley of Eshcol and spied it. Deuteronomy 1:24. In this retelling of the story, Moses does use the Hebrew verb derived from the same word miraglim. So what's the problem? In order to understand this discrepancy and resolve it, we need to cover some more information in the next section, searching the Parsha from now on. Now, let's be content to understand that the spies were sent to examine the land, and Adonai was giving to them so that they could encourage the people to take the land to their own demise. They rejected the land. Why did Israel reject the promised land? Last week we noted the following. If we read Numbers 11:26, we would see that the narrative moves from one debacle to another. It's not difficult to notice that beginning in Numbers chapter 11, almost every event in Israel's journey is characterized by rebellion and calamity. Story after story reveal to us that Israel refused to do what was necessary to actually go in and to take the land. Although the nation made many mistakes during the periods of the Exodus and Matan Torah, that is the giving of the Torah, through Adonai's grace, they were able to recover and fulfill His will until chapter 11 of Numbers. Israel have. Number 1, sin Adonai's mighty hand of deliverance. Number 2, received the Torah at Mount Sinai. Number 3, received the Shekinah to dwell among them in the Mishkan. However, once it was time to actually go and take the land by military conquest, the people faltered beyond recovery, ultimately doomed to perish in the wilderness. So what went wrong? When we read Numbers 13:27, verses 27 to 33, according to the spies' initial report, the land was everything that Adonai has promised, It would be, however, even though the land was as great as Adonai has said it would be, the people rejected it because they were afraid of engaging the Canaanites in military battle. Note that the spies' initial report to Moses and all of Israel on the land was favorable. Numbers chapter 13 verse 27. However, despite the goodness of the land, they feared the Canaanites. Numbers 13 verses 28 and 29. In Numbers 30, Caleb tried to reassure the people that they could take the land. In response to Caleb's brave efforts to reassure the people, the spies then changed their assessment of the land. When we read Numbers 13:32, according to them, the land is so huge that it devoured its inhabitants. In other words, it would devour all Israel too. In fact, the 10 spies actually spread a malicious rumor about the land throughout the camp that night because of the fear of the inhabitants. Numbers chapter 14, 1 to 3. This fear was so intense that, number one, the people were on the verge of stoning Joshua and Caleb. That is recorded in chapter Numbers 14, verse 10. And number two, they wanted to appoint a new leader to take them back to Egypt. In Numbers 14, verse 4. Exodus 13:17 is thematically related to the fact that Israel wanted to return to Egypt because of the fear of war. When Israel first began their exodus from Egypt, Adonai did not lead them by the way of the Philistines because he said that they may change their minds when they see war and return to Egypt. It's recorded in Exodus chapter 13, verse 17. Now we can answer last week's question as to why, beginning in Numbers 11:1, Israel began to openly manifest a bad attitude. They feared war. If you will recall, when Israel actually began journeying into the land, they also began to complain openly. We also saw that those complaints were without real cause, for they sought a pretext for drawing away from Adonai. In other words, they were trying to postpone the journey to the promised land for some reason. And what reason is it? They didn't have to struggle. As long as Adonai fed them and took care of them, they were okay. But now they will have to fight and struggle. They want to return to Egypt. However, the root issue is not that they fear war. The root issue is that they did not trust Adonai's faithfulness to cause their enemy to flee before them as they go to battle. Now we can resolve the discrepancy in Moses' retelling Deuteronomy 1:24 of the incident with the spies. Recall, in understanding the Parsha, I had stated that in Deuteronomy 1:24, Moses used the Hebrew verb derived from the same word as miraglim, which is the root form for military spying. Even though the verb form was never used in Numbers 13:14, there's also another problem according to Deuteronomy 1:22. Moses states that the people requested spies to be sent. And every one of you came near to me and said, let us send men before us and let them search out the land for us and bring back word to us of the way by which we should go up and of the cities into which we shall come. Deuteronomy 1:22. However, if we read Numbers 13:1, Adonai commands the spies to be sent. How do we reconcile these two passages? It says, and the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, send for yourself men to spy out the land of Canaan, which I am giving to the children of Israel. From each tribe of their fathers you shall send men. Send a man, every one a leader among them. Numbers 13:1. In Deuteronomy 1:22, the Hebrew word translated such out is we Pura, Viyachpura, which denotes uncovering that which is hidden, that is spying. In other words, Israel wanted to send spies on the military spy mission, but the Hebrew word used in Numbers 13:2 for the phrase to spy out where Yaturo, which means a leisurely stroll, tour, or scout or survey. In other words, Israel wanted spies to be sent for military reconnaissance. But Adonai told them only to tour the land. As you can see, you will only be able to detect this difference if you go back to the Hebrew. Can we think of a reason why Israel wanted to send military spies instead of a scouting expedition? It's because of the reason we stated before. Israel is afraid of war. They are so afraid that they requested that spies be sent in ahead of them. Why should they need spies? Didn't Adonai promise that they would go before them to secure a path for them? Therefore, we surmise that Israel didn't trust Adonai. That's why they wanted spies to go before them instead of trusting Adonai to go before them. In acquiescence to their request, Adonai in essence says, okay, since you don't trust me, you can send a scouting tour to see the land. Further evidence of this interpretation is the fact that in Hebrew, Numbers 13:1 is strangely worded as follows: send for yourself. The words for yourself seems to emphasize that this was Israel's idea. This clears the discrepancy. Israel needed to report for their peers because they didn't trust Adonai. Now let us get the miscellaneous connection. A picture of atonement. We have seen Adonai make an atonement for Am Israel in numerous manners. We know that he has provided atonement through the blood of sacrificial animals. In these sacrifices, animal takes the place of a sinner. However, sometimes his wrath only appears by the death of an individual. When we read Numbers 14:26 to 35, although Adonai said he would forgive Am Israel, those who were 20 years and older were condemned to die in the wilderness, whereas their children must wander in the desert for 40 years. Closely read Numbers chapter 14:29 to 33. These verses are amazingly similar to what event that brings atonement, the Day of Atonement ceremony, where one goat dies, which is equivalent to those above the ages of 20, and the one sent into the desert to bear the guilt. This signifies the children who wander in the desert. The picture is clear and the connection strong. The judgment of Am Israel is thematically related to the Day of Atonement ceremony and hints that number one, through the death of those over 20, and number two, through the bearing of guilt by the younger generation, some type of atonement is being made. We may see more examples in the future atonement through the action of the people. The two faithful witnesses. Only two of the spies brought back the correct report thematically. They were witnesses to the truth of the goodness of the promised land and the faithfulness of Adonai to fulfill his words. In the book of Revelation, we read about the two witnesses. In Parashat Bamidbar, I showed you numerous thematic connections between the exodus of the children of Israel out of Egypt and the final exodus of the last generation of believers out to this world into the millennium kingdom. Here is but one more thematic connection linking the period of testing in the wilderness of the people and in the book of Revelation to the period of testing in the wilderness of the book of Numbers. When we read Numbers 13, chapter 13, 4 to 8, Caleb was from Judah and Joshua was from Ephraim. Now we can see that the two faithful witnesses were from the tribes of Judah and Ephraim. Tisha B'Av. Back to the future. It is our goal to see how this future is relevant to the Torah as to us today. How the Torah is relevant for us today. I believe the message of the Torah is prophetic, containing wisdom for all ages. Many times we have seen that the stories in the Torah are actually prophetic acts and experiences for the future generation. We have also seen that the importance of Adonai's calendar, which is based on the lunar cycle. Believe it or not, Adonai still uses his calendar. He is not really interested in man's calendar. He does things according to his calendar, not the world's. The fact that most believers are totally ignorant of Adonai's calendar and his set apart times, that Moedim, is most unfortunate. In this section, we will clearly demonstrate to you the two important truths listed above. The story of the Torah are actually prophetic acts and experiences of future generation. Number 2, Adonai does everything according to his calendar. And when we go through the history and through the future prophetic fulfillment, we will understand it properly. And anyway, next week, next section, session 2, we will understand the Messiah and the prostitutes. May Adonai bless this story study of ours. Amen. I will continue this second part tomorrow. Amen.